Today we will walk through the installation process of the Lakehouse Optimizer using Azure Marketplace. Before we begin, let's ensure that you have the correct Azure permissions and settings to get your company up and running on Lakehouse Optimizer. First, for a place to actually deploy the application, you will need access to an Azure subscription where you have permission to manage resources. Additionally, to configure Lakehouse Optimizer to run cost analysis on any given subscription, you will need to be assigned a role of User Access Administrator or higher for each subscription you wish to run analysis on. You can check your role by clicking on the subscription, then click Access Control IM in the left-hand side navigation. Then click the big blue button View My Access, and your roles will be listed on the right-hand side of the page. Next, in Microsoft Entra ID, that's the new name for Azure Active Directory, you will need to have a role of Cloud Application Administrator or higher. You can check this quickly by searching Entra in the Azure portal, and in the Overview section there will be a card at the bottom containing your user information. For the last step of this process, we will configure your Databricks workspaces in Lakehouse Optimizer, and to do that, you will need to be a Databricks administrator for each workspace you wish to configure for analysis in Lakehouse Optimizer. Inside your chosen subscription, you will need to choose a region for the Azure Marketplace installation to install the resources, and that region needs to have at least 8 regional virtual CPUs available. You can check this quickly in the Azure portal by clicking the subscription you will use and find Usage plus Quotas under the settings on the left-hand side panel. Click the region filter and select the desired region you want to check. One of the top results will be total regional vCPUs, and you just want to make sure there are 8 available. Lastly, your IT department could limit what resources are allowed to be created in any given subscription or region. If something is not allowed, you will get an error telling you what exactly you don't have permission to do, or if you prefer, you can click the link below this video for the LHO Installation Readiness Checklist and email that to your IT department so they can review it and grant you permissions accordingly. Now that we are ready, let's go ahead and start the installation process. On the Azure Marketplace page, select the free trial option and go ahead and click Create. Select the subscription you wish to install Lakehouse Optimizer on, and either create a new resource group or select one of your choosing. Next, select the region of your choice. The installation process will install a managed application in the resource group you created or chose. The application name field designates the name of the managed application in your subscription, and the managed resource group is the location where all the resources for Lakehouse Optimizer will be created and stored. For the application name, pick something unique and don't reuse a name you recently used in this subscription, or you could run into issues even if the resource has been deleted. Feel free to change the managed resource group name if you like, but the pre-provided one is unique based on the date and time for your convenience. Pro tip, before going to the next page, I like to go ahead and copy the unique application name I chose so I can reuse it on the next page. On this page, the first 3 fields allow you to choose the unique names of the main resources of this deployment. You can name them whatever you like as long as it's under 23 characters, but if you want to keep things simple, you can paste the application name from the last page, and for application name, add app to the end. For virtual machine, add VM, and for the storage account, add SA. I find this keeps the names consistent within the group while satisfying the requirements to be unique. Next, enter a valid email address, and I'd suggest copying this to a Notes application so you can copy and paste it in a bit. Note that it is important to provide a valid email address in this field because later on when the SSL certificate eventually expires, this email is used to receive the notification email from Let's Encrypt. This email address will also be the username when we log into the Lakehouse Optimizer application after installation. Next, you need to create a secure password. Your password must be at least 12 characters and include at least 1 uppercase letter, 1 lowercase letter, 1 number, and 1 special character. I'd also suggest copying this password into your Notes app so you can easily access it when we log into the Lakehouse Optimizer for the first time after the installation process. Next, enter your name and company name. The SSH key is a generated access key that will allow you to directly access the virtual machine generated by this installation and make customizations to the resources. Note that the SSH access is only granted to connections that are coming from the Azure Cloud Shell, so trying to connect using your local PC won't work even if you have the correct SSH key. If you are familiar with SSH and know your key, go ahead and add it. If this is new to you, I suggest leaving it blank. If left blank, a username and password will be generated for SSH access, and you can retrieve that later if access is needed. The last page will let you review all of your information, and you will need to accept the terms and conditions. If everything looks good, go ahead and click Create. This will kick off the automated process. It will take on average about 10 minutes for Azure to create and configure all the resources for your Lakehouse Optimizer installation. If the deployment was successful, you should see this screen with a green checkmark saying deployment is complete. If there was an error, it should give you a message detailing what failed or what you didn't have permission to do. Once the deployment is complete, we can click on the Go to Resource button, which will take us to the Managed Application resource. At the top, it will list both the resource group it is contained in and the managed resource group inside it. The managed resource group is the one that holds all of the Lakehouse Optimizer Azure resources. If we click on that, we can see all the resources the Marketplace installed deployed, including Key Vault, SQL Database, Storage Account, and Virtual Machine. The virtual machine is the resource where the actual front-end web application lives. If we click on that and look to the right-hand side, you should see DNS name. This is the URL of your newly deployed web application. To visit the link, don't try and click the link itself because that just takes you to more Azure DNS settings. Instead, hover over it so you can see a copy icon and click that. Next, let's paste that into a new browser tab and go to the URL. Now you should see a prompt to log in as a provisioning user. The email and password values are the ones we entered in the Azure Marketplace form. If you put them in a Notes app, you can copy and paste the values from there into your login form. After logging in, you should see the license page. The free trial lasts for 30 days from the date of the Azure Marketplace install. To extend the license, you'll need to send an inquiry to the email link shown on this page, but for now, let's continue with the setup so we can fully take advantage of the 30-day trial period. Click the link for User Settings on the left-hand side navigation. At the bottom of this page, you will see a section titled Active Directory Status. Most of the functionality in Lakehouse Optimizer is dependent on Active Directory permissions in Azure and Databricks. If a user has permission to view an asset in Azure or Databricks, they will automatically be able to see the information in Lakehouse Optimizer as well. This keeps all user management in one place, Azure Active Directory. But first, we need to connect this application to the Active Directory account so everyone can log in with their Active Directory single sign-on IDs. If we click Configure, we will see we need a tenant ID, a client ID, a secret, and an object ID. These are all the key values of an Azure app registration, but Azure Marketplace does not allow the creation of this specific resource during the install process due to security reasons, so we will create an app registration now. Let's start by opening up Azure Portal and type Entra into the search bar. Select Microsoft Entra ID when it appears. If you have a role of Cloud Application Administrator or higher, you can click App Registrations in the left-hand side navigation under Manage, and then click New Registration in the upper left-hand corner of the page that opens. As with everything in Azure, you need to choose a unique name, so again, you can reuse the application name we used before and add something like AR to the end. The supported account types will depend on your organization's IT structure and if you have more than one Azure tenant governed by your company. If in doubt, you can consult your IT department on what to choose here, but for this example, I will select a single tenant setup. For the redirect URI, select Web from the dropdown. For the URI field, we will need to construct this based on the URL for your deployed application. Start by going to the tab you left open with the Lakehouse Optimizer application. Click the URL in the URL bar, right-click and select Copy. Paste this value into the redirect URI field and delete everything after .com. In its place, type out /login/OAuth2/code/Azure as shown on the screen here. Feel free to pause this video here if you need more time to type it. The end result should look like this, with your web app's URL before the .com part. Now click Register, and then you should be taken directly to the overview page for your new app registration resource. Next, click on Authentication in the left-hand side navigation under Manage. Here, you will see the redirect URI we just created, but scroll down until you see a checkbox, ID tokens used for hybrid and impact flows. Click that so it is now checked blue, then click Save. This will allow Lakehouse Optimizer to access your subscription information. Next, click Certificates and Secrets on the left-hand side navigation under Manage, then click New Client Secret. Enter a description. This does not have to be unique. Then choose when this secret will expire. Note that after it expires, you will need to create a new secret in Azure and update it in Lakehouse Optimizer. For this example, I will go with Azure's recommendation of a 180-day or 6-month expiration date. Great, now everything is in place for our app registration. We just need to copy the info into our Lakehouse Optimizer application. Go ahead and click the copy icon next to the value string. Again, we want to copy the value, not the secret ID. Then, let's go over to our Active Directory configuration and paste that value in the secret field. Next, go back to the app registration in Azure Portal and click the Overview link at the top of the left-hand side navigation. Next, let's copy the application client ID and we will paste that into the client ID field in our form. Then, let's grab Directory Tenant ID and paste that into the Tenant ID field. For the Object ID field, we actually don't want to grab the Object ID from the app registration, but instead we want to click on the Managed Application link here on the right side of the page. Then, on the Managed Application page, we will click the copy icon next to the Object ID there, and then we can go ahead and paste that into the field in Lakehouse Optimizer. Now that we've entered all the values, go ahead and click Save. Note the message in the upper right telling us not to refresh our browser. If you do, you may need to enter the values into the form again. If everything's saved and applied correctly, you should see a big green Configured badge in the Active Directory status section. Now that Active Directory is successfully enabled, we can go ahead and log out. Now we will see two login options, Single Sign-On and Provisioning User. Click Login with Azure Active Directory to log in with our SSO ID. The first time you log in, you will have to accept the permissions and allow this app to use your Active Directory data as specified by the terms of service. Accept that, and you should be taken to the overview, but for now, with empty data graphs. Click the gear icon at the bottom of the left-hand side navigation to go to the settings page. First, for security purposes, we should go ahead and disable the provisioning user. To do that, go to User Settings on the left menu, scroll down and click the Basic Auth Authentication toggle button so it says Off. This will disable the provisioning user we used for setup, and now the application will be solely configured by Active Directory users. For the final step, let's enable at least one workspace together, and after that feel free to enable as many as you have permission to do so for. Click back to the Provisioning and Permissions page on the left-hand side navigation. Side note, if you do not see any subscriptions in the Select Azure Subscriptions section, you may have signed in before all the Active Directory settings finished applying. If this dropdown says no data, just sign out and go get a cup of coffee or do something else for 5 minutes, and then log back in. It takes a few minutes for everything to apply, but you won't see the changes kick in until you log out and then back in. Assuming you do see the subscriptions you have access to in Active Directory, select one that contains a workspace you want to analyze. To enable a workspace, you will need Databricks admin privileges. If you don't have those, you will see this blue bar saying insufficient permissions to access configuration. In that case, you will either need to get the Databricks administrator to grant you administrative access, or have them do this step for you by logging into Lakehouse Optimizer with their Active Directory ID. For this example, I will do one that I am an admin on, this test workspace. Now I see Workspace Permissions, and it says Incomplete Configuration. I know I'm a Databricks admin for this workspace now. To get everything configured, I need to click Enable on Service Principal, then Upload on LHO Telemetry Agent Uploaded. These processes are automatically setting up the configuration using your Databricks credentials through Active Directory. The global monitoring option is not actually required to enable a workspace in Lakehouse Optimizer, but if turned on, it will monitor the workspace assets. I'm going to enable global monitoring in this example to help speed up the process of pulling workspace data into our application for the first time. Lastly, we need to click Create next to Secret Scope. Select Databricks under Secret Scope Backend type, and this will automatically create a secret for this app in Databricks. The name can be anything you like, but I'd suggest using your app name like MyLHO Demo, so if you see it in Databricks, you will know it's for this app. With that in place now, the badge for the workspace says Configuration Complete, and we can enable the workspace using the toggle button. Now that the workspace is configured, entities like jobs, runs, and all-purpose clusters will be detected and analyzed on a regular schedule, but not immediately. The workloads reporting page still shows no data. If we click on Analysis Management on the left-hand side navigation and then click Detection on the submenu, you will be able to view the detection intervals. As you can see, workflows and job runs will be detected every 30 minutes. So if we did nothing else, you would see jobs start to show up on the reporting page in 30 minutes or less. However, for this example, I will go ahead and click Run Now so that we can see the results immediately. Now, if we go over to the Workloads view, we can select the workspace and see reporting on workflows and jobs. Lastly, let's click the settings icon on the bottom of the side navigation one more time. And let's find the button right below the selected subscription labeled Grant Billing Reader Role, and click Grant for Service Principal. This will allow the Lakehouse Optimizer application to access consumption data for the selected subscription, which in turn will provide the data needed to calculate costs shown on the overview page graphs and charts. If this button is disabled, it means you do not have the role of User Access Administrator or higher in Azure for the subscription. In that case, you will either need to request your IT department grant you permissions, or have someone with the role log into Lakehouse Optimizer using their own SSO credentials and push this button for you. Loading consumption data for a subscription can potentially take hours, so let's go ahead and kick off the process manually by clicking Analysis Management on the left-hand side navigation and then Consumption Data on the submenu. In the Loader Configuration section, select the date in the past that you want to load data back till. The end date will be today, so if I select December 1st, it will load all consumption data from December 1st up till today. Again, this will take quite a while to run. You can check the status on the right-hand side of the screen. When the process is done, the status here will say Finished. When that happens, you will be able to go to the overview and see cost data analysis displayed on the graphs and charts. Note that the analysis done by Lakehouse Optimizer is only done from this moment forward. You will be able to immediately see jobs, clusters, and so on, but a lot of the larger analysis will be created starting now. I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of the installation of the Lakehouse Optimizer using the Azure Marketplace. If you have any questions, please reach out to our support team by emailing us at support@bpcs.com.